everyone, to season 4, episode 21 of the Hall of Fame show. How the hell do you last 4 seasons? Well, I guess when it's your stuff, you really don't get.
You own the company.
I like the product so much, I bought the company.
That's a Robert Kraftism, isn't it?
I think it was his. Was it not his? Did not buy that from Victor Kayam, I believe.
Wasn't the razor blade things where or was that something else I'm thinking of?
All those old white guys look the same, which is probably what some people are thinking when they're looking at us. But anyway.
One step ahead of me.
There you go. There you go. But we've got a special guest because Evan Nolan is on secret assignment in Wisconsin. Well, he's in Wisconsin. It's probably not a secret assignment. Family things that he does every year. And I am with Glenn Paslawski, the intercontinental champion of all triathletes. Successfully defended that in Western New York and Antarctica. I don't know where he's going to go next, but wherever it is. I mean, it's a very prestigious title, held by the likes of, again, Glenn Paslawski, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, the Honky Tonk Man, and Randy Macho Man Savage.
Those are just names I'm grateful to be affiliated with.
Absolutely. And because Glenn sort of guilted me into it, I thought, okay, I'll crack open a beer. From the fine people here at Lake of the Woods. Lake of the Woods! You can find them in Winnipeg, Kenora, and some town in Minnesota. I don't know.
Wait, are they a sponsor? And when do I get my case?
Unofficial sponsor. Sometimes they give me free. I get a free beer here and there.
Okay, so you're reaping all the benefits of the unofficial sponsorship.
For this one, yes.
We need to expand our sponsorship revenue.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Having said that, usually I say a lot of dumb things that people don't necessarily want to pick me up as a sponsor. Actually, on my last show, I was sort of like pitching an idea because I just really want to be a game show host.
And I can see that.
Yeah, right. So like I figured my idea was like I'd be the host of a dating show. You get 12 men and you get 12 women in their early 20s, right? And you just let them have at it. You don't really tell them what's going on. You tell them what the prize is after a week. But the prize is this. It's not really a prize because one of those 24 people have a secret. They entered the house with herpes. And every week we whittle out the person who doesn't have it.
There's so much wrong with that idea, but I love it anyway.
Who had herpes? One of these people came into house with a sore, and when they leave, it's going to be so much more.
Oh boy, people, this is not scripted.
No, God, it never is. Well, nobody really came here to hear about my herpes idea. They want to hear what we have to think about the Hall of Fame, and there's big Hall of Fame news. The Pro Football Hall of Fame has announced their 12 finalists in both the senior category and the coaches/contributors. So Glenn's going to help me go through all this. I got them sort of listed alphabetically, so let's go through that. The first one is return finalist from last year, and I guess before I list them off, kudos to the Pro Football Hall of Fame for being a little bit more transparent. They've always had semifinalists from what we believe, but it's only been the last few years where they've actually announced it. So it's sort of nice to sort of do that. Alphabetically is former quarterback Ken Anderson, probably considered by most people the best quarterback not in the Hall of Fame at this point. Had he won a Super Bowl, though I don't know anyone who was going to beat San Francisco that year, we wouldn't be having this debate, but former MVP, former one of the good guys, right? Because he's got the Walter Payton Man of the Year. His 32,000 passing yards and 197 TDs don't seem like much, but it is.
For when at the time.
Yeah. You know,
I think what was it, sixth in passing yards at the time of his retirement or something like that?
Very accurate, two-time leader in pass completion percentage. And it's not like we're talking about a lot of great wide receivers that Cincinnati had while he played there. They didn't.
No, not at all.
So this could be his year. Our committees, we've been very, very high on him. So we're actually going to have a mock committee that Glenn participated in and more homework that I gave him, where we're going to be sort of like giving our presentation for who we think should be our seniors, and actually Ken Anderson's not one of the people we're going to be talking about because we already picked him. So we're sort of
Right.
doing it linearly. So this could, I think he's got a good shot. Some of these others really don't. And I'm only saying that based on what we know in terms of voting from last year. Maxi Bond, linebacker, split his career from Philadelphia, the Rams, and 9 Pro Bowls out of a 10-year period throughout the 60s. Pretty good.
Yeah,
Not,
that's
yeah, what do you think?
uh the Pro Bowls are nice, but I mean the Hall of Fame likes those all decade teams.
Mhm.
Uh your MVPs, they like your championships. Uh I don't think he'll get in. But then again, I'm talking about a player who got most of his or all of his career done and before I was even born, so I did not get a chance to see him play.
Mhm.
But on the stats alone, it'll be a long shot.
I think so. One person that I'm huge on, but I don't think, again, based on what we've seen, even though he was named to that all Centennial class team, or not Centennial, sorry, he was part of the Centennial slate finalist. That's running back Roger Craig, who, for younger fans, basically think of Christian McCaffrey. He was the first person to do 1,000 yards on the ground and 1,000 in the air in the same year. 4-time Pro Bowler, 3-time champion, with the Super Bowl 49ers, and former Offensive Player of the Year. He's somebody that I would be pushing for personally. I don't think it's going to happen, just again, based on what we've seen.
I would like to see that happen because, I mean, that's the era where I started watching football as a kid. I mean, for all intent and purposes, he was the NFC's Thurman Thomas.
Yeah.
And Thurman Thomas is already in there. Thurman never got the 1,000,
Mm-hmm.
which is, again, Thomas was known for his running ability and his receiving ability. And with Roger Craig starting his career a little earlier, he was that trend-setting running back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, I would love to see him in.
I would too. One person in our group calls this person a lock. I thought that last year, so I'm certainly not going to. I can't say lock with the way the hall sort of befuddles me periodically. Because this man is not in, but Bryant Young is. Randy Gradishar, linebacker. Nobody from the Orange Crush has ever gotten in. Gradishar, former Defensive Player of the Year, was, from what we understand, one of the people just barely on the outside. He's also someone we're not discussing because, as far as we're concerned, he's one of the people we put in, along with Chuck Howley, who did get in. So we will not be discussing in our group Gradishar and Anderson because we already felt that we have, and we're all in agreement that he was our part of our push. Is this finally his year?
I mean, if you're going to put emphasis on Defensive Player of the Year, that's an award that they look into. But I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, and we're not talking like some Defensive Players of the Year. They're like a nice flash. I don't want to say flash in the pan, but they have a very brief run at the top. This guy was a 7-time Pro Bowler.
Years. I mean, he should
Yeah.
be in your center. I mean, the Orange Crush defense. That's the moniker they got, and when you're a piece of that, that should carry some weight.
Yeah, and there's nobody in there yet. Another person I'm big on, but I just don't see it. Joe Jacoby, offensive lineman, all with the Redskins, 81 to 93, 3 Super Bowls again. And usually, I think the more impressive thing with those 3 Super Bowls, when you look at that line, you had 3 different quarterbacks. One, not too bad one in Theismann, one in Doug Williams. And yes, history is very important for what he did as the first African American to win a Super Bowl, but realistically, he was an average quarterback, if that.
You're being very kind.
I am. Mark Rippon, same.
Yes.
John Riggins was the running back in the first one, but I don't believe in the other 2. So you're just getting there's already a lineman in there, but I think if there's any line that deserves 2, it's the Hogs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, again, an offensive line with the moniker of the Hogs, who basically was responsible for their offensive output.
Yeah. Lead like allowing less than stellar like skill performers to exceed. One person that I'm still struggling with. I like him. I loved watching him play. I never got a Hall of Fame vibe from him. Some people in our group strongly disagree. He was a finalist for the first time in his last year of eligibility. And here he is, a finalist in his first year of eligibility as a senior, and that's Albert Lewis. And I keep wondering, am I missing something? Because some people are making this like this is a no-brainer, but I don't feel that.
I mean, the stats are there, but again, when you look at the list of defensive backs that are in the Hall of Fame, and particularly from that era, there were a lot of good defensive backs from that era. Does match up with them? And I think that's what you're kind of thinking of when we hear Albert. And is he on the par with his contemporaries? That's the question.
Jack Silverstein and Jeff Schlegel have really been pushing that in our group. You can follow them at Read Jack and the Schlegel Daddy. And I'm sort of bringing them up because Jack has done another phenomenal job pushing for Steve Mongo McMichael. And that was, I don't know if he started doing that before he was contracted with ALS. It might be, like, I don't recall, but he's got a great thread on that. Obviously, the elephant in the room is this happening now? Because I don't mean to sound callous here, but Mongo's got a death sentence. ALS is
absolutely right at that point.
You know, like, he's not going to be probably with us in 5 years, unfortunately. It is probably the most horrific disease I can think of. But he was never really on a radar. He was not a semifinalist last year. Jack has done a great job sort of expanding on why he belongs. You look at Pro Football Reference's approximate value, and there's more to him than perhaps really meets the eye. And the argument you can make is, if you're going to sort of put him in at some point in time, do it while he's alive.
And we've discussed that through many Hall of Fames with athletes who were on that borderline, but then years later they get enshrined and it's their families that are accepting the jackets, the rings, or whatever.
Right.
And the mentality is, well, what changed from when they were alive from when they died? And so this is a scenario where you might want to lose those criteria that you've been clinging to, Mr. Hall of Fame, and just say, okay, does he meet the criteria? Yes or no? There's no reason to let him wait. Go ahead and do it, or go ahead and don't do it.
I mean, we've seen it in baseball with Ron Santo and hockey with Pat Burns.
Right.
Burns being more egregious, in my opinion, only because we also knew he was dying. And then they put him in the year after. It's like Halls don't want to be told what to do. But since no one was really saying this before, I don't know. This feels different. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. I don't know. But I'll be very intrigued to see what will happen there. Incidentally, I don't believe he was one of the 12 that we sort of came up with. A cornerback that I've been doing a lot of deep dive on, who I think would make a great Hall of Famer. I don't think he will. Eddie Metter, full career with the Rams, 46 interceptions, playing a defensive back, cornerback, and safety. 2 first-time All-Pro. Big part of that team, but not part of that Ram defense later, the fearsome foursome that would become more iconic. So this
again, all decade teams, you make that, and then 46 interceptions in that era. I mean, he was done before 1970 when throwing started to come in vogue, and to put up those numbers. Again, you got to look at the era. Was he excellent? Was he great in that era? And then was it enough to push him into the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
And that's what needs to be.
Art Powell, split end wide receiver, also played defensive back. Pretty much he's our AFL candidate. Twice led the AFL in rushing, five-time AFL All-Star, two-time first-team All-Pro. Expand on that while I check to see what my dog just did. Hey.
Yes, our co-host is running amok high atop Mount Manitoba.
Yeah, well, it's because of this one here.
Yes, our co-host.
Oh yes, yeah, Winnie. Winnie the Jet sometimes causes mischief here at the top of Mount Manitoba. I'm not sure, but I think she may or may not have eaten some poo.
Whose poo is she eating?
Well, I'm hoping it's hers. It's not mine. I don't think it's
Two dogs, right?
that actually will be season 2 of the Herpy Show. Who usually eats poo?
Okay.
That might actually be more disgusting for some people. I don't know.
You know, it would not be. I would not be surprised if there's already been a show out there that has already done that.
Yeah, but it'd be in Germany. Scheißen!
Yeah.
So it's called Scheißen! I don't know how we segue back to the AFL.
I was hoping you were going to make that. I was looking for something, but I don't have it.
Well, you never know. Winston Hill, when he was elected a couple years ago, was a bit of a surprise to me. This would be a surprise too. I don't see it. I just don't see the momentum there. But strange things happen. If we want to look at somebody who was great for a very short period of time, man, Sterling Sharp.
Yeah.
He's got the one thing that you sort of look for in a Hall of Famer to me, which is, were you at one point the best at your position?
He was.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And if they don't do that for him soon, with the way wide receiver stats are inflating and inflating,
he's going to get lost.
He's going to get lost. It's great to see him here.
I equate him in his career with Gale Sayers.
Mm-hmm.
Both were great. Both had short careers. One's in and the other is not. That's my opinion.
One didn't have a best friend who died.
And had a movie made about it. One movie was good and the other one not so much.
I didn't know there was another movie about that.
There was. And I think I fell asleep watching it and didn't take time to watch it again.
Was it called Ryan Sings Again? Like, what do you do with that? When you already had James Caan and Billy D. Williams, you don't do that again.
Did a remake, and then I think they tried to get, and again, I fell asleep during it, so I don't remember all of it clearly, but I think they tried to get more into the political aspects of the era as opposed to, which, I mean, they did get into the racial aspect in the first one, but it was more of a good guy, buddy guy movie where, I mean, it's probably number one on the list of movies that all men cry at.
I haven't cried in a movie since The Night at the Roxbury.
You didn't cry at the end of Brian's song?
I did not, no.
Wow, okay.
No,
I take that back.
I do not cry at movies. Have I? I don't think so.
Okay. But yeah, Sterling, I believe, should have been in a while ago.
Yeah, I feel, just based on how I think things could sort of like fly through, even though like we're going to talk about another wide receiver next who has similar career numbers, it's just not necessarily the same. Just only because he's more modern. When you look at a Powell and the next person, Otis Taylor, you don't necessarily expect to see them with numbers that are comparable to what Justin Jefferson might get.
Right.
I know there's a better example. That was just the first one that came in my head.
No, I mean, it's fair.
Yeah. Otis Taylor, probably the best Chief not in. Super Bowl champion, two-time AFL champion. He's also got a title in yards, or sorry, in wide receiving. I was about to say rushing. Be another great choice, but I don't think they're thinking of him.
No, and he's another one. The further away you get from the time he played, starts to play against you.
Now, the next one, Paul Lawrence, who you were kind enough to help co-host on a show that we do, uh, he thinks that this could be a dark horse candidate, mainly because this is our only one that from way back. Al Worcester, tackle, guard, defensive end, played from 43 to 51, two-time NFL champion with Philadelphia, or first-team All-Pros. So since the Lavi Dilwigs didn't get through, or the Ox Emersons, the people that would be sort of comparable in terms of era, he stands alone. So if you were sort of thinking, we really got to right some wrongs from pre-1950, he's it.
Yeah, he's the one on the list, and maybe that's what the. And again, we don't know exactly how they come up with these.
They have their committee and they do sort of a vote similar to what we do. Actually, the only difference is,
we don't hear what's going on. We don't get any.
So some will state their case when they're on the committee. Very few do. That's sort of like why when we're doing our little project, we try to be as transparent as possible. We actually invite you into the room to watch it from high atop Mount Manitoba.
Thank you for watching past episodes and bearing with us all on our tangents.
Oh, I'm the king of the tangent.
But yeah, if they're thinking about evenly dispersing eras for this class, he would be a good choice. Anderson would be your next one. And then, yeah, maybe Craig or McMullen.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. We don't know when exactly they're going to be making that announcement. We know that they're meeting next month for both committees. So usually they do those pretty soon. I think often before the season even begins, when we'll have that announcement. So let's do a quick look at those who did not get in. There's one person I want to sort of like point out, which is very interesting to me. First off, running back Otis Anderson, linebacker Carl Banks, running back Larry Brown, wide receiver Mark Clayton, quarterback Charlie Connerly, wide receiver Henry Ellard, cornerback Lester Hayes. Hayes is actually someone we will be discussing because we have him in our 12. Chris Hinton, offensive lineman, Cecil Isbell, tailback, Billy White Shoes Johnson, returner, Mike Ken, offensive lineman, Bob Kuchenberg, offensive lineman. And he's the one that I find very interesting because he was a finalist last year and apparently in the top 5. So I don't know what changed because the committee didn't change by much.
Yeah, that's interesting to take that step backwards.
Kuchenberg is like, from every story you read about him, was not exactly the most likable individual, but they liked him enough last year.
Right. Yeah. I mean, personalities, that does play a role in these games of picking who you want to get in.
Maybe they all heard a story that we did not know. I don't know. George Kuntz, offensive line, Jim Marshall, defensive end, Clay Matthews Jr., linebacker, Stanley Morgan, wide receiver, Tommy Nobis, linebacker. I think Nobis was a part of the 12 last year also. So he's another interesting one to sort of fall off. Steve Tasker, special teams, and Everson Walls, cornerback. So there you go. For the coach contributors, we have Tom Coughlin. Don't see it. I think he's lower in the queue, even though he is 2 Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, given who's on this coaching list, yeah. I mean, definitely worthy, but there's a few that we'll go over that probably should get in ahead of him.
Possibly the one below, Mike Holmgren.
Right.
Champion with the Packers, took Seattle further than they probably should have. Was very close to actually winning a title there. Better winning percentage than Coughlin. I think they've got him higher up. Bucko Kilroy, basically he's here as an executive, mostly for scouting work and a lot of work with the Patriots. You can make a case for him as a player, and I have. Actually, he's listed on the Not in Hall of Fame 300. But overall, go ahead.
If someone has a career like a playing career, and then moves to the front office and does what he's done, I mean, that should be enough to get you in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, just these committees sort of separate everything. And I think I'm sort of seeing that as we're doing, and I'll just sort of plug our project that you were voluntold to sort of be a part of,
Yes, it was.
which is the Pro Football Hall of Fame Revisited project. And what that is, the Pro Football Hall of Fame came into existence in 63, and we're thinking, what if it started in 46? And we picked that because I always think that any hall or any team should do something 25 years into their existence. And yeah, okay, well, that's 20 or 26. Okay, the class would be announced as January. I got that in air quotes for those listening, of every year. So it looks like that we're going to get some people who in the first class who got inducted into the actual first class in 63 as contributors, but were held players themselves. I don't think I'm going to speak out of turn unless there's still some votes that might come in. It looks like George Hallis is going to be part of that class. So he's going to be inducted as a player. Was he far more instrumental in everything he did as an executive? Absolutely. But we're looking at this as 1946. We don't have a coach contributor thing yet. That plans to roll out in 1950. So you play with what sort of dealt. I mean, if when you're that far in, where do you really go with that? I don't know. It's not perfect. It's very transparent. So if you want to blame somebody, you can blame me. You can also blame me if a show comes out about who has herpes. Blame me for that. That was my idea.
Moving on.
That's why I have a co-host. Imagine if I just did this alone.
You know, if we make it big and we get sponsorship and we can do a show of just the Buchnerverse for 24 hours, that would be interesting.
Brought to you by Vagisil. I don't know what. Who actually cures? No, nobody cures herpes. What's a herpes cream company?
I wouldn't know, Kirk. I don't know anything about herpes and herpes treatment.
There'd even even for the show, I'd even come up with an idea. There'd be a mascot, and he'd sort of like be this muscular guy, but he'd be called Hercules.
Evan's gonna kill me because I'm just contributing to all of this.
All right. Speaking of Evan, his favorite team is the New England Patriots, and we've got Robert Kraft. Probably he should be in. He saved the Patriots. The Patriots became great largely because of him, because he knew when to step in, when to step out. Boston is one of the most important cities in the United States. They need to have a team there. He kept it there, and under his watch, 6 Super Bowls. And it'll be a happy ending for us all if he gets in.
Thank you. I saw where you were going, and I wasn't going to stop you on that one.
Yeah, well, sometimes even I throw myself a softball. But in all seriousness,
softballs.
Kraft.
Yeah, Kraft will get in there. And again, this is going to be my tirade on the Patriots.
Go ahead. Well, you're a Bills fan, full disclosure, so that's why.
You're a Bills fan, but I mean, to be fair, I can appreciate the Jets, I can appreciate the Dolphins, I can appreciate the Steelers. But for some reason, their whole cheating scandal got lost. They're still seen as we're seen as the great franchise. Whereas
they are a great franchise. You can't say that they're not.
No. But we'll go over to another sport, Major League Baseball, where the Astros are still getting vilified for their cheating scandal. Now, I know you're baseball, football, maybe it's not apples to apples, but it's still cheating. You have a slew of baseball players that are never going to see the light of day in the Hall of Fame. Why? Because they cheated. Either steroids or the Black Sox scandal, they cheated. But for some reason, NFL is still holding Robert Kraft, Tom Brady, and whoever was involved in those cheating scandals still on a pedestal, and I just don't get it.
Okay, I've got a theory to that, and there's a current Buffalo Bill who was also a cheater and has not been vilified, and that's Von Miller because he was suspended for PED use.
Yeah.
And but I think I forget who actually wrote this, but I something I read so much longer ago. Like, why do we care so much more about this in baseball? And I think the answer is because it's such a stat-driven league, and we glorify statistics. So Barry Bonds breaks Hank Aaron's record. Well, he did so because he cheated. Uh, Somebody breaks a sack record. Well, he's just getting that edge. You know, I know that wasn't the case, but I'm
Yeah,
just
well,
throwing that out.
why is that viewed so differently? I mean, I don't get it.
No, but I mean that's the best theory I got from what I read, and I think there's something to it. We
And then
romanticize baseball statistics. We don't romanticize football statistics as much.
true, and then we'll address some of that romanticism in the next episode of the Classic Sports Review when we go back and look at the 1994 All-Star Game.
Oh,
And I know,
I got an opening for him, by the way.
well, that whole opening to the
Yeah.
show. I mean,
Yeah.
that's good. We'll talk about that, but
Right.
romanticize, and it's amazing how that was the case in 1994, and now in almost coming up on 2024, that romanticism isn't there.
No, no. I mean, like this. Yeah, when we get there, because like that was something that I mean, it killed it in Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that stadium didn't help either. But
No. But yeah, but I mean, and again, baseball, I mean, George Bush made it his mission to distract us from his incompetence and decided to have Senate hearings on steroids and cheating in baseball. But no one decided, well, there was a brief investigation on the New England Patriots and Spygate, but beyond that,
yes,
well, event.
you're right, because American presidents since then have not tried to distract the populace with nonsense. That never happened since, Republican or Democrat.
Facts.
Somebody
But,
who
yeah, Robert Kraft's going to get in.
I think he will get on it. I think this is going to be his year. Because what coach last time, maybe contributor this time. I will predict. Of course, I predicted Kraft last year too. So what do I know? Someone who probably should have been in already, Buddy Parker. Great head coach for the Lions when they were good, when they were last good. Two championships in the 50s, the last time they held a championship. Didn't do as well when he took over at Pittsburgh, but still has an overall record of 104, 75, and 9. I'm segueing because it's my show. I can do that. What was your initial thought when you heard Detroit's getting the opening kickoff game?
It surprised me.
Mhm.
And I mean, are they? I mean, are they setting up the stage for something?
I don't. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
it's. I mean, is
Usually
this
you've
going
got
to
a power
be?
against a sexy coming up team, but
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like there's going to be a lot of people sort of predicting like great things for Detroit, but I feel like this happens every year. You've got that trendy pick, like was Cleveland a little while ago, and
No, and everybody loves the coach. I mean, he energy personified.
yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting. I did not see that did not see that coming, but it's football. You can pretty much put anyone in that spot. No, you could.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Dan Reeves. Here's an interesting one. Never won, but 190 wins. Been to 4 Super Bowls.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you want to call him a poor man's Marv Levy? I mean, he pretty much did the same stuff.
And I'd argue with lesser talent.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that Falcons team. I mean, who would have? I mean, who? I mean, who predicted them to go to that Super Bowl?
No one did.
So yeah, I mean, he's more than worthy to be in there.
Mm-hmm. Same with the next person, Art Rooney Jr., part of the legendary Rooney family, current vice president, but it's a tough role when you got Kraft here, I think.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, yeah, same category basically.
Marty Schottenheimer, another person who's never won, but again, another huge overall record. 200 wins. Well, a lot of coaches can say that. Mike Shanahan, who did win with Denver, did get those 2 Super Bowls, also has won with as an assistant coach, 171-38.
Eventually, I mean, he'll eventually get there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you ignore his statistics and not put him in.
If they want to go old school, then it's going to be this guy. Well, it could be Parker, but Clark Shaughnessy, very important behind the scenes man. Never a head coach in the NFL, but always an assistant, a consultant, was a head coach in college a lot. Very important man in the history of football, but that was divided between college and pro.
And it is the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so it's only because of his competition, it's going to be really, really tough. Lloyd Wells,
Only one gets in this category, right?
yeah, only one. Yeah. Lloyd Wells, first full-time African-American scout, did so with Kansas City and focusing on the HBCUs, and he did a great job there. And another scout, John Wooten, 2 Super Bowls, one with Dallas, one with Baltimore, as a scouting executive. This eliminated Bud Adams Jr., Roone Arledge, C.O. Brocato, Alex Gibbs, Ralph Hay, who the man who created the NFL is not in here. He's not a finalist.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a head scratcher, but what are you going to do? It's the Pro Football Hall of Fame committee.
Well, I mean, it might be different come 1950 and we have our little senior committee, but we never know. Eddie Coach Cotell, Elmer Layden, Jerry Markbright, Virginia McCaskey. That I don't know how the hell she was even a semifinalist to begin with. Rich McKay, John McVeigh, Art Medell, Carl Peterson, Jerry Seaman, George Seifert, Seymour Sywoff, and Jim Tunney are those who did not make the final cuts. Either way, I would like to just extend the congratulations to those who got here. And to those, I guess, online, if you're just sort of like saying it's a joke that it's criminal that this person's not like this. Come on, just come up with your reasoning. Just don't just be so dismissive. That line of talk never works, ever. You never will sway anyone with if your sentence starts with it's a joke that.
No, because you're offending the organization
And the voters and those, because when someone's told they're an idiot, they're not going to really listen to what you're having to say, what you're saying. It never, yeah. My pair of pennies there. Normally at this point, there's a few sections that we do. I'm going to go a little bit different. Usually I've got a section where I do elevator up, elevator down, where I discuss those whose chances have improved and those who did not over the past week. Basically, we just have 24 people who were elevator ups. So there's no point going there. Evan usually talks about those who we lost. And Evan is far kinder than I am and will sort of put a lot more effort into sort of like the people that we lost. I'm going to go a little bit differently. So I'm just going to focus on only 2 people. And I just want to give them their due. So we lost 2 musical legends that I think were very, very different, both very important in their own way. The first that we lost is Tony Bennett. I believe was it 100? I think he or close to.
It was 98.
98. Okay. Tony Bennett was. I don't know that he was the most influential person. If you were to come up with a list of the most 100 influential American singers, I don't think he'd be there, but he would if you went top 50 most iconic.
Mm-hmm.
King of the American pop standard. He knew who he was, and he did not change with the times, and that's okay because that's not what he wanted to do. As big as he was in the 50s and early 60s, that didn't translate into the 70s. So I was reading a whole lot about sort of his depression and his own drug use. I didn't know that he did a whole lot. of that.
I was unaware of it too until the news started coming out and then doing the spots on him. I did not realize he had addiction problems. But I guess that was prevalent. I mean, going through all the biopic movies that we've seen the last few years of musicians, I guess that was just the thing to do going as far back to Tony Bennett's age.
Amazing thing is too, like, because Woody, he was doing a lot of cocaine. With that nose, how the hell did he not overdose? Well, I wouldn't want to be sharing a line with him. Like, hey, Tony, use it all up again, you dipshit.
Yes, Evan is much more nicer.
Yeah. Well, that's why I just sort of like lean back on that one when he sort of does all that part. I that's not my strength. But in the early '90s, he became cool again.
Yes.
And I think that was the right time for that to happen. I didn't really think about that until today. Grunge actually, I think, helped him out because it was more about who you were and not who you were trying to be. And
I never.
yeah, and Tony Bennett, even though his record company said like you got to come get with the times, that wasn't who he was. And then a whole new generation discovered him. It's like, okay, this old guy is pretty cool because he's just being himself. He's being himself. He's not embarrassing himself. He can sing, and he was pretty much selling out arenas until he couldn't, or large facility or venues until he couldn't perform anymore, and did so without having to compromise anything. He wasn't Pat Boone when he did the songs of, what was it, that heavy metal cover thing.
Yeah.
He wasn't.
Yeah, Pat Boone, and I don't remember what show it was, but just coming out in the leather vest, shirtless.
Yeah,
just disturbed me.
his cover of Crazy Train should never have been done. Also, Paul Anka when he covered "Smells Like Teen Spirit."
Right.
Have you seen that one?
I vaguely remember it, but yeah, you're getting right to the point where Bennett, though he did do the collaborations,
But they collaborated to him.
Right, exactly. It stayed true to the music and
Mhm.
actually showed how talented those artists were.
Yeah. Tony, well, if he did, someone can correct me, but I don't think Tony Bennett went out, hey, my polka face. No, Lady Gaga did went with him because Lady Gaga, someone like her or love her, also knows who she is
Correct.
and is not afraid to sort of like do other genres. I mean, I'm not necessarily, if Lady Gaga's playing her, I don't know that I'd really care to see her, but I respect the hell out of her, if that makes sense.
Say that.
Wow.
My cousin's husband went with her to see Lady Gaga. And I want to say 2 weeks later, we were at a ball game or something. And he said, Glenn, you know who really puts on a great show? No, Steve, who? Lady Gaga. And I think I spit out my beer or something like this. No, phenomenal show. If you ever get a chance, you should see her. Well, I'm not going to go see her. But yeah, a guy who's not into that genre went to a Lady Gaga show and was just thrown by it.
Yeah. I think Bennett was always Bennett, and that made him cooler. And I think we learned this early as kids. If you're cool, you don't tell people you're cool.
Correct.
Bennett never did. Bennett never gave in. Bennett was him to really the end. He died of Alzheimer's. He apparently caught it or contracted it in 2016. Wasn't made public till 2020. So because basically when he's performing, from what I was reading, yeah, he didn't remember that he actually performed.
Oh wow.
So like he could, because his short-term memory just went to shit.
Right.
But, apparently, like even like in his dying days, he was just singing still. So Tony Bennett, R.I.P. You're a legend. Absolutely. The other one I want to talk about and I'm surprised this got to me because another person that I wasn't necessarily a fan of but respected, and that's Sinead O'Connor, who we lost at the age of 56. And in some ways, I think she's very much a polar opposite. Sinead O'Connor died always searching for happiness. I don't know if she was ever happy in her life. She was abused read sexually by her mother, and not to sort of stereotype things in Ireland, but Ireland's a lot more religious than we are here in Canada and the United States, respectively. You know, you're far more tied in with the Catholic Church, and that was something that was a big part of who she was. She's most known for two things. For well, I'll say the thing that I know her the most for, which is her amazing debut album, The Lion and the Cobra. And if anyone hasn't really heard that and you just take anything out of this, just go back and listen to that album. I'm not as fond of stuff she did after that, but I think that is one of my favorite albums of that particular year, which is, I believe, 87. So the other thing she's most known for is her number one hit, Nothing Compares to You, the Prince cover, that it blows you away. It just, you can't imagine that somebody else wrote that.
Right, one of those songs that better than the original.
By far. And we're talking about better than something Prince did.
Right, right.
Yeah. The other thing, which sort of ties in, I guess, where I'm going with that is when she was on Saturday Night Live, I was trying to remember, did I see this when it happened or did I see it like everyone else afterwards? And I don't recall, but she performed her second song, or I think it was her second, doesn't matter, and had a picture of the Pope at the end of her song, ripped it up and said, "Fight the real enemy," which led to what could be argued as the first real cancellation before we called it that. She was banned from NBC. I don't know if she ever was allowed back, banned from Saturday Night Live. 2 days later, or 3 days later, she was at the Bob Marley, what, I don't know what it was, but it was at Madison Square Garden. She was performing, I want to say War or Redemption Song by Bob Marley. I don't recall which. Was pretty much booed off the stage. And there's still something, I still remember that image of Chris Christopherson sort of coming out and just hugging a completely distraught Sinead who cracked. She just lost it. What she was necessarily saying, I'm still not completely sure, as I don't think we're really offending anyone, even Catholics, by saying, unfortunately, there's been issues with the Catholic Church in terms of issues with children. And sorry, that's true. That could have been her thing. It could have been far deeper. I was looking at so much, but then you try and dig into one thing, and then all these other things sort of pop up. Sinead O'Connor always sort of struggled with her religion. There was that time where she was ordained by a French church, so she would come. She had her, I don't know, I guess the collar is what you call it. I think it's just the collar. I don't know. Converted to Islam in 2018, had an Islamic name. Then you'd see her in a hijab. But the last video that someone posted of her was just like a week ago, where she's in her flat, talking about how she's got an eczema on her face, but unfortunately it's not from anything sexual, while wearing a tank top. So it's not exactly this fully Islamic vibe giving off. So like, I think this is a woman who looked for how, I'm playing amateur psychiatrist, I don't fucking know, but just trying to find happiness through religion all her life and never did. She would say, come out as bipolar, then she said, no, I'm not. Then just later say, I'm bipolar, but then, no, I'm not. There was, I think it was like 10 years ago, where she put out a whole video where it looked like she was going to kill herself. And then she was, I don't know, I guess under watch or just like under doctor's care for a while. So I don't know if this woman was ever happy. Even like with Prince, there was a story that she told once that Prince tried to sexually assault her.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
So this woman just did not have a great life, left behind some good music. Her son killed himself at the age of 17 a year ago. And I'm not a parent. I'm barely a dog parent, as we see my dog still eats her own shit. So, but I can't imagine sort of thinking, okay, my son killed himself due to mental illness. Did I give it to him because of my shitty genes? I don't know what she's thinking. I don't have a clue, but, or was thinking. I do take a lesson from this. If you can find yourself early, that's great, whatever that might be. That's it. I don't have anything more poignant to say.
No,
No.
understood.
Yeah.
It's an interesting story that she laid out through her life.
Yeah. Doesn't look like she took her own life. That's what I thought. Uh, that might be proven differently as this airs, but from what I read, no, like no foul play suspected. So who knows?
Could be
What
natural causes.
it could be. It could be. So who knows what you do when you're self-medicating, and I assume she probably was.
Well, again, we discussed with Tony Bennett how that's just the lifestyle where you self-medicate.
Yeah.
And I've never been around that lifestyle. I don't know what it takes to create art, to have to create art for a living, to have other people critique your art
Mhm.
with the art that's very close to you, with someone who's trying to sell the art. It's just a product. And I'm sure that weighs on someone's mind when they're trying to do that for a living.
I think especially with Sinead too. Like I don't know if she cared that much about being a superstar.
Oh no, I probably not.
Yeah. I mean, after her giant hit, and she never came close to having another one. I don't know if she didn't do what she did on SNL, if that happens anyway.
No, she does. Well, you go back to the whole Irish culture, and I'm gonna guess that her mother was a devout Catholic,
I believe so.
poss- possibly doing whatever she was doing under the name of Catholicism. And then you addressed it later on with the cover-ups that went on within the Catholic Church.
Mhm.
I mean, after all that happened, it's like, okay, Sinead was right. And
Yeah.
she got demonized for what she did.
Well, I think also too because she puts that out there, but it's 92. I don't know, like the stories were out there, but they weren't out there.
It wasn't public. It wasn't in the
Right.
mainstream news.
And you've got someone who just does that, and you think like, what the hell is this about?
And
Also,
that's what everyone's thinking.
well, even then, I also read other things. Where in a 2013 interview, she says that she shouldn't have done it, and that the Pope might have been a really good guy. And then in 2020 interview, she says it was the best thing I ever did. So,
Yeah, bipolarism. I mean,
or
it could
just
be.
yeah, bipolarism, struggling with what is it that's going to make me happy. I don't know, and it's sort of maybe that's sort of why I've been thinking about this a hell of a lot more for somebody who's only had really one album I liked. I didn't really care for most of the stuff after. I don't know. It's a I never know what's sort of going to hit me and what doesn't when people pass away. So yeah, Evan, apologies, buddy. Like I know you do this far better than I do. I just wanted to focus on these two, and yeah, and apologies for how I'm gonna close. Now, Evan always does a section called the good, the bad, and the ugly of the week. Sometimes I have my own another section where it's called my smorgasbord of shit.
I'm going to get out of the way.
Well, it's even got its own theme song. Shit, shit, shit.
Was that the Swedish Chef making an appearance?
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
Oh, fantastic.
There you go. So I just want to like vent off a few things here. Some interesting things from the world of sports. Some good, some bad, some ugly. Good. Women's World Cup has been a lot of fun to watch. I know it's really hard for us here in North America because it's all in Australia, New Zealand. Having said that, I actually love watching women's soccer, mainly because they don't do things that the men do, which is pretend to be injured for 10 minutes and just go, and then pop right back up. Uh, Obviously, I'm not going to say stand here and say like, well, they'd all get destroyed against the men's team. Yeah, they would. So what? We know that. But there hasn't been as many blowouts as we've seen in past. So that third tier countries are really improving. And it's nice to see. So I just wanted to sort of like put that out there. That it's something that's really good. And if you haven't watched any of it, just watch a game at that lens. Just don't look at what they are not necessarily doing. Just I like to look at what they don't do, which is again pretend to be hurt. Because anytime somebody tells me, "Oh, soccer is the greatest sport in the world," I can just say, "Yeah, except for those dives," and they just go like, "Yeah, you're right." You can't defend it. It is the most annoying thing ever. I don't know how we don't have more ex-soccer players as soap opera stars. Just the way they over dramatize everything.
They're very good.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Uh Here's I guess my bad and ugly in its own way. And yeah, I'm going back to the WNBA. Now, Glenn, I'm going to tell you a name of a woman. Let's see if you know who this is. Raquana Williams. Who is Raquana Williams?
I have no clue who she is.
Okay.
But you're going to tell us.
Well, I'm going to tell you. Come on down. We're going to play Does Glenn Know Who This Woman Is? Game show host voice attempt here. Now, I did a whole diatribe. Glenn, actually, I did it twice. Glenn got to hear that. And I said that sometimes it's really hard to market these women because they do stupid things.
I was here for that rant.
Yes. Sometimes they do even awful things. Raquana Williams beat the shit out of her wife. 10-year vet in her 11th year. Was an all-star about 7 years ago, so decent player. I don't know how much longer she's got. She's hurt this year, so she hasn't played a game, but was a member of Las Vegas's championship team last year. Now, not only did she beat the shit out of the wife, in the 9 counts of battery, one of them is strangulation and assault and attempt with a weapon or something like that. When it's 9, does it really matter? It's bad.
No,
the WNBA, where Black Lives Matter, except for their Black lives. No?
Hey, I'm staying out of the way.
Okay. Okay, I know that might have been a step too far, maybe many steps too far, but unfortunately we see this before. Not only is this one of many WNBA players who have been charged with domestic violence, this is the second time for her. She got a 10-game suspension in 2019. The Aces, to their credit, have banned her from club activities. The WNBA has done nothing. If this was an NBA player, what would we expect? I think we know the answer here.
For a second time?
Second time.
Well, I mean, we know what the NBA did when the athlete decided to brandish his weapon online for a second time.
Right.
But this is physical abuse and violent. I mean, the NBA would probably crack down ridiculously hard.
Possibly banned from the league, especially if it's somebody who, will be blunt, is not a needle mover.
Correct.
And if they would do that to John Morant, who has no victim other than his own stupidity. It's a stupid thing he did, but he did not hurt anybody other than trying to pretend to be a thug. This one has a distinct victim. I don't know if it's the same wife. I didn't check that out. But this is where they've got to sort of like crack down and just say this is intolerable. I know we're in a weird spot, right, where we want to protect women, right, from domestic violence. But what do you do when it's the woman who's abusing?
See, that's the thing. You're going into a new venue because we're acceptance of relationships.
Absolutely.
And our society has always viewed the husband and wife, male-female dynamic, where 9 times out of 10, the woman's always the victim. Well, now you go over to the other side, and when you have the same-sex couples, domestic violence on the female side, well, the woman's always got to be the victim, and now how do you handle this?
It's, yeah, we haven't figured this out yet, but at some point, this is where you are. You've had this problem before, not once, not twice, multiple times. So you have to sort of come up with something, a league policy, which really shouldn't be that controversial. I get why you wouldn't want to sort of like shed light on this a few years ago, but like you said, I don't like, do you know anyone right now? And like, I'm 50, you're 10 years younger than me, I believe, right?
No, I'm like only a couple years behind you. But thank you
Oh,
for thinking I'm 10 years younger than you.
okay. I just assumed. So there you go. Okay. Either way, we're in the middle six of our golf course.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever come across anybody in the last 10 years, even in my age group, even older, who when they say, "Oh, gay marriage, that's awful."
No, which is a good thing.
It's a great thing, but we haven't sort of figured this out here. And so I guess where I'm going with this, if it's like 2016 and the WNBA is like, oh shit, I don't know what to do. We don't want to like publicize that almost all our players are gay. Nobody gives a shit at this
No.
point now. So you have to come up with something and treat them like you would if you were any other league, which is this woman is gone. Period.
Sure. I mean, the example that's coming to mind is Domingo Herman, who
Mhm.
lost the whole season when he was assaulting his wife at a Yankee charity event.
Right.
Uh, I guess you give the guy a second chance because he did come back. He did marry the young lady, but he lost an entire season.
I'm all for second chances. She had that.
Yeah, you're right.
I truly, and I've said this many times. I mean, like there should be redemption paths for people, even her, if there is a way to sort of figure that out. But you have to come out and say that she's suspend. I would just say you're suspended indefinitely until further notice.
Right.
Then deal with that with her union, whatever. I don't know until more facts come out because this is still pretty fresh in. I mean, there could be some other circumstances. I doubt it when it's
Yeah, I
that.
mean, do you know what's in their union agreement and what the league can and cannot do?
Right, but I mean, it's got to be there. There's something. I mean, yes, the union always usually, unless you're Trevor Bauer, they said, "Now you're on your own. We just don't
Yeah.
like you." So there are exceptions to that, and I don't quite know her standing among her peers. I got no clue whether she's a likable person behind the scenes or whether she was inebriated. I don't know. I don't really care, but I care about the WNBA at this as of this recording lack of action, and they're allowed to do that because it gets no attention. You can't cry for attention and then sort of like take solace in the fact that you don't have it when it suits your narrative, and this is one of them.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, and I'll close off with something that's sort of more dedicated to Evan because I think he would have talked about this if he were here. Evan does not follow college sports. He finds the NCAA corrupt, and he's right. He's 1,000% right. It is. I hate hypocrites, and which means I hate myself every time I watch the NCAA and the Olympics because they're the two most evil organizations. And I want, well, FIFA, I guess, is there, throw them in too, but I'll watch it because I do love college football. I love college football. The Pac-12. So what? Colorado's leaving for the Big 12. So I guess congrats on the Big 12 for resurrecting themselves from what looked to be really bad when I believe it's Texas and was it Oklahoma? I forget who are going to join the SEC.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. So I love. Okay, well, it's okay, guys. It's okay. We got San Diego State. It's okay. We're gonna get SMU. We might get Tulane. Terry Bradshaw once played here. I Evan would always say that we're not that far away from like a weird super league, but here we are with the haves and the have-nots. completely chasming. And it's I struggle with this because I'm kind of pro capitalism, but then you see this, and I don't know I don't even know that I have a solution here. It's just watching a shit show in real time.
Absolutely.
And obviously, or not obviously, I would imagine USC, UCLA are thinking, okay, we're not sticking around for this. They're trying to figure out what their way out. I think they already have. But how far are we away from from college football of maybe 3 super leagues?
We're not far away at all, because
Mhm.
I mean, essentially that's what they want.
Yeah.
I threw out a blurb of a news article I saw about Tommy Tuberville and Joe Manchin wanting to combat the NIL and what the players are doing after they finally get some control over themselves. They want to do legislation that's going to curtail what the players are allowed to do and essentially give that power back to the NCAA. And
Right.
again, my feelings about that are Tommy Tuberville should probably be the last person to be involved in any type of NCAA regulations because Republicans don't believe in regulations; they want deregulations. But he also made his millions on the backs of
Mm-hmm.
athletes talk to come to Auburn, and he hardly graduated any of them. So all this wanting to maintain the level of the student athlete is bullshit.
Can I play the
Whatever you want.
glasses? No, I'm gonna play the glasses half full. It's a
Okay.
Republican and a Democrat reaching together.
Well, Democrat.
I knew you were gonna say that, but I just wanted to tee up that softball.
I know you like to feed into my soapbox rants on politics.
I kind of know well. Yes, here's my official political thing. Free agent, hate Trudeau. That's about it.
Yeah. But yeah, when I saw that where the athletes finally got a chance, okay, we don't like what this coach is doing. You didn't promise us what you're doing. We're leaving it 1 year. They want to curtail that. They want to limit the name, image, likeness contracts. And it's just, okay, we get it. You coaches are losing control. It may affect your salary. Another item that wasn't in their legislation was caps on coaches' salary, which there should be, given that when you're at the elite level of either football or basketball, particularly at state schools,
Mm-hmm.
your your highest employed state employee is usually that state's basketball or football coach.
You're going.
That's ridiculous.
It's a big reason why a lot of them don't leave.
Exactly.
Also, too, a big reason why the skill sets are just so different. I mean, I can't imagine the recruiting involved and just the whole. It feels like that just never ends.
No.
I got no problem with them being paid well, but I have a bigger problem when someone can't make money off their likeness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so that's something I've always had an issue with. So with that, well, Evan's really good. See, Evan's really good at being moral. So like, I always feel I never sort of like bring up some of these things. So really, it's your fault that I went off the.
Sorry, Evan.
I don't know that I would have mentioned my herpes show if he was here.
Well, that's something we can work on. And then when it does get on the air and it gets canceled, some years down the road, we can have the show that this crap was on national television. The herpes meeting game.
You know what'll happen? It'll happen when I finally get that dream job as the and it's going to be for like CBS, and I'm going to be hosting. It'll be a classy dating show, and then someone will dig up all through the archives of my herpes rant or my ones about midgets. Oh, I'm sorry, little people, but yes.
Why we don't have sponsors?
I had one for a little bit.
Right.
I still might get that one back. I don't know. But with that being said, there's other things in the Buchnerverse that we do. And Winnie sometimes shows up, not always when she's sort of like digested some fecal matter.
I would not have her mouth that close to my mouth knowing what she just ate.
I love her. What am I going to say? Yeah, don't. I won't let you kiss me though.
Bucknerverse.
Bucknerverse, yes. Glenn's also the co-host of another show that we do called the Classic Sports Review, and soon we're just like trying to compile a few before he defends his intercontinental triathlete title. So we recorded well, I don't know how sports it is, but we had fun with it anyway. Roller games. So we decided we're going to actually do something that is sports related. Winnie, you knocked that over. We're looking at the 1994 Major League Baseball All-Star Game, where it's very important, not because of the game itself. The game itself is really irrelevant. It's just everything leading up to it. A month later, they would go on strike and they wouldn't come back. And this was critical in so many ways for the future of baseball, the future of teams, the future of stats, if we want to sort of argue that. So much had changed, and to recover, it probably led to another era, an era where they were sort of ostriching, putting their head in the sand, ignoring certain things that were going on. And some of those players would be involved. So look for that. And we have a very special guest. Hint, he's not a former Olympic medalist. He's not a former NFL Pro Bowler. It's someone with far greater credentials.
And we'll leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that. Uh-huh. So we have that. Also, it's the Retro Football Show with Paul Lawrence. We have recorded Super Bowl 9, and we're going to be doing Super Bowl 10 shortly. So look for that soon. That's a lot of fun. There's also Vinny Makes the Hall of Fame case for, he was going to do one on Seymour Siloff, the great statistician, but he's changed his mind. He wants to go to a player next. But the last one up on the Bucknerverse is Don Cherry.
Oh, okay.
So check that one out, where we actually played the snippet of what really got Don Cherry fired. And we sort of do a deep dive into why that sort of got him sacked, why he's still very, very important, and why the current generation they're sort of wrong viewing him one-dimensionally, because they just don't know what he meant at one point.
Definitely got to look at that one.
Yeah, you rotten kids, you just don't understand. Because back in our day. Anywho, there's also another show called How the Hell Was This a Hit? Well, last one we just recorded was, when was the last one I recorded? I don't remember. I might have been drinking again. No, I wasn't drinking, but I legitimately don't remember. But the one that we've got next is De Etre Bébé. Do you know what that is?
No clue what that is.
Okay. Well, that's French for it's tough to be a baby. And this was a #1 hit in France and other parts of Europe. And it's by a 4-year-old who sang, "It's tough to be a baby." It went #1. It went number 58 in your country. Minor hit in La Belle Province of Quebec. So how do you think it went for a poor 4-year-old who was exploited by his parents?
Cocaine by 12, alcohol by 13.
No, but not far. But it didn't go well, as it generally doesn't when you exploit your 4-year-old kid. Future projection: the kid from Ryan's World will be bankrupt when he can actually legally get his money. You see that YouTube show?
Not see that.
I'd never heard of it until a few years ago, or just a couple years ago. We were invited over at Pauline's friend's house for something, and there's a kid just watching this YouTube show. What the hell is this? It's just this little kid who's just looking at toys. Turns out it's one of the biggest YouTube channels going.
Wow.
Making millions. Prediction: that kid will see none of that. Because that's just sadly what happens to a lot of that. For every Jodie Foster, there's 25 Gary Colemans.
Sadly.
Yes. And with that, the Bucknerverse ends this chapter for today. So wherever you are, wherever you may be, we just happen to be here. Winnie and I are in Mount Manitoba. Glenn in beautiful Buffalo, New York.
Sunny Buffalo, New York.
Yes. We bid you, because I'm thinking French, adieu. Adieu. Stay safe, everybody.
Take care.